The following program is brought to you by the League of Women Voters.
For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Gary Robinson. I have the distinct pleasure and honor of being the general manager of Trinity on Main. We take care of this place like it was my home. We only finished building it last week. As a concept, we have a little problem with our heating system, so we do apologize for that. Come back in December, it'll probably be much colder. On behalf of Trinity on Main, I welcome you here. I'd love to have you come back to a show when you pay us money, instead of just coming and get these freebies from the League. But we love the League and we're happy that they're here. And we'd love to see you back at Trinity another time. Enjoy the debate. Got to be better than the last few I've seen. Thank you.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the New Britain Area League of Women Voters, welcome to the New Britain Candidates Forum. My name is Basha Maselik, Voters Services Chair and Coordinators of this afternoon's event. Thank you all for being here. I will briefly review the purpose and protocols for today's forum. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization of women and men. We believe that an informed electorate leads to a strong democracy. We sponsor candidate forums, voter registrations, informational meetings, and meet and greet along with other voter services. The League gratefully acknowledges the continued support of Trinity on Main for this event and many others throughout the year. The League respectfully requests that the audience maintain an appropriate level of decorum throughout the forum. No videotaping is allowed by audience members. Nutmeg TV will be taping and airing the forum. Please silence your cell phones. Please refrain from cheering, booing, or making disruptive comments during the forum. Candidates are timed in their responses, and audience disruptions may limit their comments. Campaign materials, including signs, stickers, buttons, and t-shirts, are restricted from the auditorium. Please check the lobby where the candidates have been encouraged to leave campaign materials for the public, in addition to information on membership forms for the League of Women Voters. Many League members are in attendance this afternoon as greeters, timers, and screeners. We would also like to thank all the candidates for taking time out of their busy schedule to participate, and also acknowledge that not all could be here today because of personal commitments and work. As stated before, Nutmeg TV is here and will record the forum. The air date will be announced in the Herald and on the League's Facebook page. Today's forum is an opportunity for residents of the City of New Britain to pose questions to the candidates based upon contemporary issues and concerns. Questions will be accepted during the forum. Simply raise your hand to receive or submit a card with your question. Submitted questions will be screened by League members Paula Poplawski, the Republican, and Sue Truglio, the Democrat, for appropriateness. Questions will then be forwarded to the moderator to pose to the candidates. It is at the discretion of the moderator which questions will be presented to the candidates. The forum will begin with at-large candidates, followed by individual wards grouped for time purposes. The mayoral portion will begin after a 10-minute break following the alderman. For the alderman, a question will be posed. Each party will have 1 minute 30 seconds to respond, then another minute each until the responses are exhausted. We will end approximately at 1:45, And then 1:55, we will begin the aldermen by ward. For the mayoral forum, each candidate will have a 30-second opening. After each question, each will have 2 minutes to respond, and then 1 minute until the question is exhausted. Each candidate will again have 2 minutes at the end to close the forum. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce today's monitor, Deb Poland.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. We just have one final bit of business to take care of before the debate begins, and that is to determine which party will answer the first question. So I beg your indulgence for about 30 seconds. All right, thank you for that. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with the debate. And I'm going to start off with a lead question that has to do with regional collaboration. In 2019, the state legislature established a task force to study ways to encourage greater and improved collaboration among state and municipal governments and regional bodies. The report is due prior to the next legislative session in 2020. In New Britain, how would regional collaboration work? Do you already have examples of regional collaboration here? And what are some ways that you could enhance regional collaboration? And we have 90 seconds. And the Democratic Party candidates will go first.
So I think regionalism is actually one of the biggest things that New Britain needs to seek in the future. Connecticut has 169 different municipalities, and it really puts cities like New Britain on an uneven playing field because we have a really hard time raising the tax revenue within the city of New Britain to fund the services that we need. I currently sit on the Mattabesett District. I'm on the finance committee of that. That's a regional sewer authority for the city of New Britain, Farmington, and some others. And that is a fantastic example of how regionalism can deliver the resources and the services that we need, but also saves money. The city of Middletown is about to come on board with the Mattabesett District, so they're turning off their own sewage treatment plant and joining the district, and we should see the cost to the city of New Britain falling by about $1 million every year. So we need to look to find as many of those partnerships with our neighboring towns as we possibly can, especially in the realm of education. New Britain students are funded near the bottom of the state, where our neighboring towns see $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 more per student, and that has a direct correlation on outcomes. We need to partner with our neighboring towns of Berlin and Newington and others to find ways to save money between our school districts so that we can fund our kids and give them the opportunity they deserve for the best education possible.
Thank you. And do we have an answer from?
Sure. I think the important piece is to understand that the city of New Britain has been integrally involved within the council of government process here for the last 6 years. I served actually as a representative from the mayor's office in a number of those meetings. It represents over 17 towns and cities throughout the area. Part of that is the transportation effort, for example, which is based on a regional basis. The mayor is now the vice chair, by the way, of the Council of Governments, and working very closely with all the various towns and communities that are there. New Britain actually, if you recall, was used to be part of the Central Connecticut Regional Planning Agency, so there's a history in terms of our efforts for collaboration. We've been very, very proactive. We've been much more proactive just in the last 4 or 5 years with our involvements with the Council of Governments. Again, not only transportation, but dealing with other issues in terms of water, dealing with other areas, with housing and other kinds of developments. Hartford, of course, is our, if you will, sometimes our major competitor from that standpoint, but with that coalition, with that collaboration, we're able to obtain recognition and future funding potentials within that regional council, and obviously we're going to move forward, and regional government is something that certainly is something we all have to be aware of and begin to constantly discuss.
And I'm going to jump in there to also further
60 seconds.
Sure. What Alderman Salerno said, but the mayor is also involved in a regional effort to end homelessness. So homelessness is not just a city of New Britain problem, but it's a regional problem, and the mayor has been actively engaged in regional efforts around the issue of homelessness. And of course, New Britain has just been recognized for having 0% chronic homelessness. So that's a feather in the cap of the efforts to do regional cooperation and to also reduce the chronic homelessness within the city of New Britain. I also just wanted to respond to what candidate Anderson said in terms of education and regionalizing education. It would be very difficult for the city of New Britain to enter into regional opportunities with Berlin and Newington because the suburbs often do not want to cooperate with inner city school districts. We also are such a large district by comparison that we see financial equities within our own system because of the large volume of families that we serve. The only regional education system that exists right now are through the RESCs and magnet schools, which have also complicated the funding for public education.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Does anyone else want to jump in on this question? Do you want to jump in now, or would you rather wait till the next question?
That's okay.
Okay. The next question will go to the Republicans first. What is the best balance of taxes and services in New Britain? In other words, if you had to choose between increasing taxes or decreasing services, what would be your goal in that arena? And if there are specific services that you would cut or enhance, please list those. And I'm going to ask all the candidates to just bring the microphone a little closer when you speak so that everybody in the audience can hear you, and as well as Nutmeg TV as well.
Can you hear us? All right.
Just pull it a little closer. All right, so that goes to the Republicans first.
The issue of balance in services, well, I think that's the struggle that whoever's in office has, how to how to figure out what your citizens are willing to pay in municipal taxes and what services are they willing to forego. We talk a lot about funding for education and the commitments of cities to fund their own education system versus the support from the state. And that's a very difficult balance to strike because, of course, education is a function of state government, and the state should be much more forthcoming in how they fund education. In terms of other services beyond education and raising taxes and funding it, you would have to look at, say, something like the senior center. Who would want to cut the senior center to save a minuscule amount of taxes when we have elderly people that is their only form of socialization and for some, for food? So you would really need to bring all your stakeholders together and talk about what the city can afford to provide, what are the absolute necessaries like the police department, the fire department, public education, and then look at the quality of life issues through the Parks and Rec department and through something like the senior center. So I think it's a very complicated question. Also, depending on administrations, for instance, Mayor Stewart inherited a $30 million deficit and had to make some very hard choices in terms of financing and whether or not to raise taxes to save the solvency of the city and the stability of our finances. So that is a very complex question with no easy soundbite, although people like to give a little quip in a soundbite, but it is a very complex question that has complex solutions.
Do any of the candidates on the Democratic ticket want to respond? You have 90 seconds.
So I agree with Sharon that this is a very complicated question. This is the very root reason that I'm running for City Council today. I see that the City of New Britain has a crisis of high taxes. We are the 4th highest tax rate in the state, and taxes have increased every single year under the current administration. We also have dramatically underfunded services. Our school district needs $30 million more a year to fund our students at the state average. We have roads in parts of town that aren't being paved. We have parks that need repairs. We have sidewalks that need repairs. But it's no easy answer to figure out should we raise taxes or lower services because we already have high taxes and we already don't have enough services. But we are going to have to make some hard decisions as we move forward. We're going to have to decide what we can and can't afford as a city. We've spent a lot of money on beautification projects. We've spent a lot of money on festivals. And we have to decide if those are the things that we want to prioritize, or do we want to spend $100,000 on a new teacher so that our kids can get the best education possible.
Are there others who'd like to chime in on this question? 60 seconds.
Sure. I think it's important to have the conversation when we realize that all municipalities are dealing with issues of sustainability, of how we're going to have to raise taxes or not raise taxes. 48% of all the properties in the city of New Britain actually are tax exempt. which means they don't pay taxes. We have a pilot program, which is the payment in lieu of taxes, for example, which basically we receive between 17, based on state studies, 17 to 23% of the actual value of those properties. That conversation has to happen. That's going to be the major effort of trying to decide how we raise revenue of other sources besides property owners. And I think that's the key that we have to recognize and appreciate. And that conversation has to happen. Whether it's about fees, whether it's about a variety of things, we have to be blunt and real about recognizing that we cannot be sustainable on the backs of property owners in the city of New Britain constantly in terms of revenue.
And in terms of new development, we're 98% developed in the city of New Britain, so that's a struggle as well. We are land poor.
Any others on this one? All right. We're going to go to a question from the audience, and this question is going to go to the candidates on the Democratic ticket first. What would you do to address the opioid epidemic?
So right now, we're seeing an ever-growing number of people who are succumbing to opioids. At both the state and city level, I know that there are task forces that are specifically targeted to identifying and helping those who are most in need. I think that we need to be proactive and meet people where they are, as opposed to creating services and expecting people to come to them. I think we need to go out into the community. We need to make sure that we're talking to people, whether they're homeless, if they have housing instability, but we need to make sure that we are providing those services. Also making sure that we have Narcan and other medications that can limit the progression of an overdose. All of our police officers and fire department individuals, everybody should really have, should be prepared to help anybody who's in need.
And a response, 90 seconds. Yeah.
Being a member of the police department, one of the things that the Mayor Stewart incorporated was a program where anyone who has an addiction, whether it be drugs or alcohol, in lieu of incarceration or arrest, if they opt to go to the hospital for treatment, we do have a non-arrest program in place. Now, that doesn't mean they have kilos of drugs on them and they're not arrested for sale, but the typical user in the downtown who's homeless, who's struggling, can't afford to be arrested for a weekend, we already have some programs in place which has allowed more people to come to us. We've actually had people come to us in the lobby who are addicted, and in lieu of being arrested, they opt to go to the hospital. And the hospital is also on board with getting these people the treatment they need in lieu of facing criminal charges. The fire department is also aware of this, along with EMS. So in past cases where someone may have been afraid to come forward and discuss a drug habit or a problem they have or to seek help, we now assist them in getting what they need. It is a beginning program. It's just starting. It's about maybe a year in its concept. It's already been working at the police station and firehouses. It can be approved upon, but again, with funding being tight throughout the city, we have to find a grant or resource program that will allow us to expand this program. Many people at Central Park are now willing to come forward to the police officers and talk with them, which is something new for us. And we look forward to helping as many people through these problems as we can, and the mayor fully supports it.
Okay. Anyone else want to chime in on this one? All right, we'll move on to another question. And this one goes to the Republicans first. What are some of your priorities for transportation, including for pedestrians, people in cars, public transportation, and bicyclists as well?
Okay, the city's already undertaken a program which has shortened the amount of distance on crosswalks at almost 60% of the city. If you've noticed Broad Street, the downtown, Arch Street, Glen Street, other areas, it's a much more shorter distance for pedestrians and bicyclists. We've already incorporated a bicycle safety lane, which does need some maintenance, that's true. We do need some more signage, that's being addressed. But we've already allowed the 3 feet of distance for bicyclists. The Police Traffic Safety Bureau is also out instructing people and teaching them actually how to use a crosswalk. We found a large number of people, and you could stand out at any intersection, will just cross at the crosswalk without understanding how it actually operates. So again, in lieu of ticketing people and arresting them, there are programs in place between police, fire, and EMS to assist pedestrians in how to properly cross the street, how a bicyclist should operate in the roadway. Many times when you see a police officer stopping and talking to someone, it's not a custodial situation, it's more of an educational. And now that's a program where the mayor went out and found grant money, federal grant money, to pay for these, what you see in the downtown, this new brickwork, the shorter distances in roadways, the new traffic signage, the new light programs, minuscule amount of money through the city, most of it federal, and the law enforcement officers who are hired on overtime, as well as the fire department, are also hired on federal grant money, not coming out of the city's budgets, to educate the public on these different programs.
And I just want to jump in. If
We got to go to the other side of the aisle
the
first.
time elapsed?
Yep.
Stop, sorry.
So 90 seconds?
Sorry. So, we have a great public transportation system now with the fast track linking New Britain to Hartford and some other communities, but we also need to improve the first and last mile. It's hard for some people to get to those fast track stations, and so we really need to make sure that we have other resources in New Britain to get residents there. But we also need to return to the basics here. As I've knocked doors around town, there are sidewalks that are crumbling and unrepaired. There are a lot of potholes. There are roads that have been paved and haven't been paved in some parts of town in many, many years, where in other parts of town we see them being paved over and over again. And so what residents have told me is that they really want to see a more equal distribution of city dollars, especially when it comes to roads and sidewalks. There are a lot of people in our community who don't drive and need to walk down the sidewalks to get to where they need to go. And for the folks of us who do drive, we'd like to drive down sidewalks, or not drive down sidewalks, hopefully. We'd like to drive down roads that, that don't have potholes and that are paved equally around the town.
Anyone else want to jump in on this one?
I just wanted to add a couple things because you tied transportation and pedestrian together. And of course, the city has 3 transportation hubs through state grants and the foresight of our current mayor, Aaron Stewart, which is tied into the Streetscape project. And the point of the Streetscape project and the Beehive Bridge is to make pedestrian-friendly spaces available in downtown and to get people walking in the downtown area, again, shopping and eating and bringing back up vibrancy to our city. People, private and federal and state governments invest in communities that invest in themselves. And I think when you talk about transportation and you talk about streets, you're looking at a mayor who invests wisely in our community and has brought in private investments, hence the fuel cell high-powered data center that's coming, as well as all the grants that a Democratic governor brought to a Republican mayor because of the hard, excellent work she's doing in this area of transportation and pedestrian-friendly spaces.
Anyone else? All right, we're going to move to another audience question. And this one, we're going to start with the Democratic side. On the Common Council, will you try to find money for summer youth employment for youth ages 14 to 19? Yes. The question is on finding money and resources for the summer youth employment program for teenagers aged 14 to 19.
So, I think that this is a program that would do good for the city because we need to train our kids, to be prepared for the jobs of the future. But I can't promise you that that would be my priority on city council. I think what we really need to do to revitalize the city is that we need to put some more money into our schools. Like I said, we need $30 million more a year to fund our kids at the state average. Our classrooms are full. We don't have enough paras to deal with the high incidence of trauma and things like autism. We really need to get more resources into our schools so that we can reduce the classroom size and provide our kids with the education they deserve. I think part of that could absolutely be a partnership with local businesses to fund work programs to complement what our kids are learning in the school. But like I said, I think our schools need to be a priority.
So I'm going to jump in here, and then maybe some of my colleagues want to talk about that too. Park and Recreation Department and the Board of Education hire our local kids for summertime employment. Those are two things that go on year after year after year. Also, New Britain High School has really expanded its academy structure. So you have the Health Academy, the Finance and Business Academy, and now the Manufacturing Academy that prepares our high school students to be job ready upon graduation. They could go into a 2-year or 4-year program or earn certificates while in high school to go in and be job ready upon being 18 years old. So there are some positive things, and OIC is also doing some great things in the city of New Britain to help the population that participates in OIC to also be job ready. Summer youth employment is really grants from the state of Connecticut. And you could talk to any of our nonprofits in the city of New Britain. They are constantly going up to the state during the budget time of year to lobby not to cut those funds. But in lieu of state support, the city of New Britain has been doing fairly well with the Park and Recs Department, the Board of Education, and New Britain High School preparing and offering summertime and full-time work.
I think just a quick comment too, that we have an array of resources that do exist in the city of use, whether it's the YWCA programs or the Boys and Girls Club programs, the Little League programs that exist during the summer, for example. Literally, 1,000 plus children involved in those age groups and a little younger are involved in them. Gosh knows a lot of people here have probably been active with them. And it's a collaboration effort to be able to apply the existing nonprofit programs that do exist, as well as what the city can afford to provide when they can.
Okay. Anyone else on this one?
Sure.
Okay.
Here in the city, a couple of the local businesses had approached the police department, as well as some other organizations like Schwag Automotive on Stanley Street, which is a 50C3 program. And they're looking to do apprenticeships for the kids in the high school. That's been something that's been approached. So there are some non-monetary programs out there through private businesses that would like to take the kids, teach them a skill they can use out of high school that, let's be honest, it may not be a $100,000 a year job behind a desk, but we definitely need people who can fix a car, someone who knows how to lay brick, someone who knows a trade skill, trade skills that are hurting. I don't know how many of you have called a plumber lately to come to your house. Well, you pay a lot of money. And a lot of these private organizations that are 503Cs will allow apprenticeships to a lot of our students at no cost, so they can come out and have a trade right out of high school that I know after my last plumbing bill wasn't cheap.
All right, anyone else? All right, we have another audience question, and we're going to start on the Republican side of the table. What is your game plan to promote home ownership in the city of New Britain?
I'm sure we get a crack at that, because I'm not so sure that always in the city of New Britain, as a governmental agency, that we're responsible for providing home ownership as an entity. But we do have programs in existing, whether it be neighborhood housing services, whether it be programs that actually come out of a human resources agency, whether it's about real estate efforts that try to provide various opportunities for people in the city to be able to reach out and gain home ownership. I certainly would support some form of collaboration with the private sector to be able to discuss opportunities where we can get good fixed interest rate loan situations for young people to come into the city. We do have, by the way, many people coming into the city of New Britain who are younger because they can afford to buy homes here in the city. And we're seeing it all over the city. And I think it's just important that we be cooperative and collaborative with those folks. I'm not so sure that I believe that necessarily city government is the one to create the home ownership issues or create those kinds of things. We want to be able to afford an environment that allows people to be able to come in and purchase a home.
Well, such as, because there's time left, the affordable Columbus Commons that's being developed to bring in home ownership, in also the downtown area to have a walkable area, a shoppable area, safe neighborhoods, good schools. New Britain is rebranding itself under Mayor Stewart. The city of New Britain has been rebranding itself, making our small city actually have a suburban flavor to it while being true to who we are as an essence of a community.
All right, and on the Democratic side?
So my wife and I were able to buy our home in New Britain thanks partially to a program through our lender that reduced rates because we were purchasing in the city of New Britain. I'm not sure, again, if there are city dollars to go towards this program, but we should absolutely look to see if there are more partnerships or more incentives we could encourage our private businesses to do. But part of the problem that I see is that people may buy their first home in New Britain, but many of them don't stay here for the long haul. What they see is that once their kids maybe reach school age, they don't want to enter in the New Britain schools, so they move over to Berlin or Newington. So we really have to invest again in those core assets of our community so that we can encourage our families to stay here, to raise their families here, and to stay again in retirement. And that means that we have to get more money to our schools, we have to improve our roads and our sidewalks, we have to repair our parks. It's all of those basic things that a municipality needs to do.
Does anyone else want to jump in on this question? 60 seconds?
Yes, I'll take 60 seconds.
We got down the end of the table as well.
Let me jump in for just a second. I think all the investment that Mayor Stewart and the current administration have done in the city of New Britain has really put New Britain back on the map. People are seeing all the things that are going on, and that makes them want and be more interested in coming to New Britain and becoming a part of New Britain. So, and that's really where you can broaden your tax base, grow your grand list, and then the tax burden is reduced on everybody, and we can do more funding with education. We can fix the roads, we can do all that stuff by attracting people to buy property in the city.
If I could just chime in on top of that,
Sure.
if that's a few seconds left.
You can take full 60 seconds if you'd like.
I think it's really unfair to discuss and say that people who are generally or with some speculation are going to buy a home and then decide they're going to move out because of the education program. We didn't. That's correct. My children are proud graduates of the entire public school system, and I think that's a part of an issue is about proactive working with the school system to change any kind of negative perception about what this school system is all about. And tremendous things happen in this school system. We need to trumpet that every single day. We can't be negative about things that happen within our school district, whether it's about how much money we throw at it or don't throw at it. We have to work and cooperate with the school district. And I'm a firm believer of that we can do that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, another question from the audience, and this one's going to go to the candidates on the Democratic side first. What are your goals for inclusion and diversity in the city of New Britain?
Democrat side first.
At the city council level, or just in general?
I'm going to improvise since the questioner didn't indicate. I would say city council, task forces, and any other civic engagement ideas.
Okay, so New Britain has a wealth of diversity. We are so lucky to have a range of ethnicities and genders and just a wide array of people who we can hopefully pull into the city to make it better. I know that sometimes it feels like the city council is removed or that city hall is somewhat removed. So I'd like to make more of an effort, and I think that many council people, as we're out knocking on doors, it's a unique opportunity to start bringing people in to be more involved, and perhaps we need to make more task forces. I'm not positive about that, but I think that we do have a unique opportunity to try to pull more people into the process.
And if I can just pick up on that, like Katie said, New Britain is one of the most diverse communities in the state. Cities like ours are lucky to be some of the only communities in New Britain that are diverse at all. And to that end, it's really important that our school district represents that community, that our police force represents our community, that our city council represents our community, and that we're inviting everybody into the process so that we can make sure that the decisions we make are good for everyone in the city of New Britain and not just one side of town versus the other.
90 seconds on the Republican side of the table.
I believe that there is great diversity that's going on in our city right now. I'm one of them. I am a multiracial candidate running for the city council, and I have just recently graduated with my MA and phlebotomy license. There's so much great opportunity out there for diversity to increase within our own city. If we reach out, and I just want to allow people to understand that we still support diversity within our council. Our team is very diverse in every way possible you can imagine, so we're here for you.
And I want to, I just want to jump in there in terms of the Board of Education side. Although I'm running for the City Council, I spent 12 years on the Board of Education and was very involved in minority teacher recruitment and improving administrators, diversifying our administrative workforce. And although there's a long way to go, we have really accomplished and made strides in terms of minority teacher recruitment. There are barriers to that every community, not just New Britain, faces. But to tackle a portion of that barrier, New Britain High School created a teacher cadet program targeting minority students to participate in an education program with a direct pipeline to Central to become a teacher and then come back to work for us.
Thank you. Anyone else for 60 seconds? No? Okay. We will move to, I believe this will probably be our last question, and I want to try to get as many of you in here as possible. This question, we will start on the Republican side. What would you say are your top 2 or 3 priorities if you are elected to the Common Council? 90 seconds.
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, that's an easy one, actually. It's really honestly the issue of taking a look at economic development that basically grows our grand list, that provides us with the revenue we need to address all the issues we just talked about. If we want to help the homeless, if we want to be able to assist and support programs that exist for young people, we have to continue to, there's a hand-in-hand situation. You can't segregate and separate the issue of economic development to the overall revenue options for the city of New Britain. So my approach, we would like to see the council as well as members of even the community to recognize that we need to move forward on an economic development process that brings more business in, more jobs, and more opportunities for folks, not just only to be here who are here, but to attract those people to come in and buy those homes, to be able to live here and go to a quality school system that we have. So, I mean, it's really tied into it. It's a central point for everything that we do, and we can't diminish it and assume that it's going to take care of itself in terms of where our revenue is going to come from.
And I would just add in, since your time has not elapsed, that economic development, good, strong public school system, and safe neighborhoods. You can't have 2, you have to have 3. To make this community work and be vibrant, it's economic development, solid public education, and safe streets and neighborhoods.
All right. "90 seconds to the other side of the table.
So, similar to what Alderman Salerno and Sharon said, it's really important that we make sure that we can provide for our citizens. Over the last couple of years, I've become familiar with how the budget operates. And I think that a priority needs to be to balance our budget, to have a budget that provides the services that we need, doesn't have a structural deficit, that can actually fulfill what we want it to fulfill, and in addition, making sure that we can have funding for our kids, for our school system.
To pick off again where Katie left off, I'm running for city council primarily to work on the budget. I see that as the most important issue facing our city. If we don't have a budget that does what the residents of New Britain want it to do, then we can't, fund the schools, we can't do the roads. But the problem is that our budget relies so heavily on one-time revenues like the sale of city property or transferring fund balances from one department to the other, and things like refinancing, that I'm afraid that in the future we're going to have to either raise taxes or cut services just to fill the holes of those one-shots. So we really need to have an honest conversation about what we can afford, about what the long-term prospects of the city are. Economic development is absolutely a part of it. It's true for every community in Connecticut. But if we don't have an honest and transparent budget, then I don't think that the city is doing anybody any service.
Would anyone else like to jump in and for 60 seconds Top 2 to 3 priorities.
Sure. Well, I think it's important to recognize that we have had a balanced budget. We've had a balanced budget for the last 6 years. That's important to recognize. Transfer budgets is really about what you talk your operating budget. And the fact is that, when we look at how we spend our money and when we appreciate, the things that do get done through that budget, it's really sometimes amazing of what we can accomplish. But that budget also includes the debt service process. It all includes the fact that we have done incredible activity and construction in all our parks, at Chesley Park, at A.W. Stanley Park. We're working on others in Osgood and Washington Park. We have our school renovations, for example. Now we've had both Gaffney School completed and Smalley School completed. That comes out of the part of the debt service that you must be able to allocate within the confines of your budget. So I just think it's important to recognize we have had a balanced budget. We can't do without it. Not to mention a reasonable surplus that's required, by the way, by our bonding, by the bonding gods, if you will, in terms of being able to develop funds and have access to services and to continue to fix the things that need to be fixed in the society, in the city we live in.
Okay. Anyone else?
I just want to jump in on the issue of transparency because that's a word that gets thrown around all the time. The budget's online. The budget debate is public. Budget public hearings are out there, and unfortunately, very few residents come to it. And the city council meetings are live streamed. Several of those, and there's a website. That's how you get to read your budget online. And actually, in one of the Democratic budgets that have been toted in a mailing, they aim to eliminate both the live streaming of city council meetings and the web page, which adds to transparency. So you can't have it both ways.
I got 15 seconds on that. I think it's important to recognize that the budget is 333 pages long. It actually involves the Board of Finance and Taxation, of which we've attended 72 meetings since 2013, 2014. That's where the actual department heads present their budgets, and it's a process. And as an alderman, I want to continue to attend those meetings and be part of those, and I certainly encourage every member of my council to do the same.
Anyone else? All right.
If I can
Yep,
just finish
60
up real quick.
seconds.
Thank you. To harp on the budget issue a little bit longer, I think it takes contextualization. The budget is $10 million larger than it was 6 years ago when the current administration started. Taxes have raised, the tax rate has increased by 14.5%. From 44.12 mils to 50.5 mils, and I don't know about you, but I haven't gotten a 15% raise in that time. We really have to contextualize the debate that's going on here that, we're paying more, we're expecting more of taxpayers, and we have to, again, have that conversation and make the hard choices of what can we afford, what can't we afford, what do we need to prioritize, and that's why I'm running for city council, and that's, I want to fight for a New Britain that works for everyone, specifically around the city budget.
We're going to wrap up this debate, actually, at this point. I want to thank all of the candidates for participating and for making the contributions that you're making to democracy and to the city of New Britain by running for office. And everyone, a round of applause for the at-large candidates. Thank you. I'd like to ask the candidates for wards 1 through 3 to come up on stage, please. Wards 4 and 5, please join us on the stage so we can make a smooth transition to the next debate when this one's over. Thank you. All right, so we have the debate now starting for candidates for wards 1 and 2. And by draw, the first question will go to the Democratic side. And again, these questions will be a mix of questions that are developed by the League of Women Voters and questions that are coming in from our live audience. Thank you to those of you who are submitting questions. We will provide each side 90 seconds to respond to each question. If there are others that wish to jump in afterwards, you will get 60 seconds to respond to the question. And when we feel the topic has been exhausted, we'll move on to the next question. Does everyone understand? All right, great, thank you. We're going to start with a question developed by the State League of Women Voters. And you may be aware that we're about to embark on the 2020 U.S. Census. And a lot of federal grant money counts on each person being counted and counted only once. We want to make sure that everybody here in New Britain is counted for the U.S. Census. What is your plan to try to ensure that everybody in New Britain gets counted in the 2020 census? Do you have any ideas to help achieve that goal? And we will start with the Democratic side.
Excuse me, are you asking Ward 1, 2, or everybody?
Anyone from the Democrats is fine. Thank you.
Well, I suppose I'll jump in there. When it comes to things like that, making sure that we already have a presence in our communities, that we're already going out, talking with our neighbors, building the relationships necessary so that people feel comfortable engaging in the civic process. And that starts with what we're doing here today, what we're all doing here today. Being here and going door to door, talking to voters, talking to the people who live in our communities, and just building that relationship. Making sure that they feel part of what's going on in this city. If they feel that the city is responsive to them, they'll feel more engaged in politics, not only here at the city level, but at the state level and at the national level. And that they know that politics is working for them and not against them. And so that's something that we need to focus on.
Can I chime in? May I chime in? Yes. I learned a long time ago that if you want something done, and specifically for a group of people, you literally have to go and knock on their doors. You have to find out from the people what they want, and specifically in relation to this question, what can you do to ensure that every resident is registered or accounted for? If they are not accounted for, services are going to be lacking because they will not be addressing the people that are in that community. So literally, I've ran programs where I've literally knocked on every door in that area. And if that requires to knock on every door in New Britain, then we need to knock on the doors, get a response.
All right, someone from the Republican side.
First of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for the invitation for this forum. I think that one of the key things when it deals with the census is it takes collaboration. It takes collaboration not only from the political aspect, but even all of those groups within the city that work together with our community. We know that this is a very diverse community, and so when you can work together with the Latino Coalition, the NAACP, some of our mosques within the city, when we come and work collaboratively, it makes the residents in our city much more comfortable to engage with us. And I do agree with that sentiment, that we do have to engage the residents. Instead of expecting them to come to us, we need to go to them. Also, I want to commend Mayor Stewart and some of our officials from the state of Connecticut. There was a press conference done a few months ago where they talked about the census, and they worked collaboratively between the state and the city to bring attention to it. And so I think that that's what really ultimately it takes. If we can work all collaboratively, all in one, to engage the residents, people will be much more comfortable in engaging us with the census.
All right. Anyone else for 60 seconds?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's an alderman's job to try to register everybody. They do have census workers. We can't go knocking on every door and try to get everybody without papers and everything to sign up, because they won't. That's all I got to say. That's my personal opinion, though.
But I agree, the census workers need to knock on the doors.
That's right.
Anyone else want to jump in on this?
I also wanted to state that that's another way of motivating those to be counted. When you can promote to anyone that there are jobs available. I mean, we have a lot of people who have needs and necessities, and when you look at how they pay for these census jobs, it's a pretty good pay, and I think that's a great motivating factor to get people within our community that look like the people in our community to want to work in that job and to be eager to meet the residents so that they can be counted.
Thank you.
That's the census is very important because it's account everybody, and that's why it needed for the community. what kind of program he can give it to the community. Because he got less, that's less and less programs. He got more people knocking doors to see the people what he needs.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, we'll move on to the next question. This question, we will start with the Republicans. What would you do if elected to enhance economic development in your area of New Britain?
Well, I would like to begin by saying that that's being done right now. When you look at the east side, which I'm very proud and have the honor and the privilege of representing, on the east side at this current moment, we have Chesley Park that's in the process of being renovated. That's the park that I grew up in, due to a $400,000 grant that we received, and it's currently close to being completed. When you look at other aspects of the east side, in collaboration with our school district, you have Roosevelt Middle School, Roosevelt Early Learning Center now that has gotten a new playground, and you also have Smith School, which has another addition to the playground. And the latest thing that we have is that Chamberlain Elementary School is the next school that is set to be renovated. And so I'm very proud of the progress that's been done on the east side. I give credit to the mayor and working collaboratively with us to make that happen. And I see nothing but the best days are ahead of us on the east side of New Britain.
All right. And on the Democratic side?
Yeah.
90 seconds.
Democrats?
No.
Democrats.
Okay. Oh, I'd like to say something because I'm a proud resident of the east side, and my story is simply this. When I was served on the Community Development Commission, one of the first things we worked on had to do with Chesley Park, and that was the splash pad. That was the first effort that took place. But the thing I remember most is calling Mr. DeMayo, who was in charge of the Park and Recreations Division, and I asked him, what can we do to turn Chesley Park, that's used by the New Britain Junior Hurricanes, from a swamp to a football field? And the man told me simply, he said he could not get involved with that because there was too many political issues involved. And I don't need to go into the details, but I will tell you this. I said to him, I said, sir, you do not understand what's at work here. This is much higher than politics. This is about this community on the east side. And the long story short, I said to him, we will have a football field. We will have the parents engaged. They will become involved in the political process. And if you notice now, not only do we have a football field, but we have artificial turf, we have lights, we have different activities taking place every day of the week, and obviously it's bringing in revenue. That started way back when. Also, the streets on the east side, 10 years ago, I put in to have my sidewalk fixed.
I'm going to ask you to wrap it up, sir.
Okay, thank you. It's working.
Others for 60 seconds.
Specifically with regards to my background, a big part of why I decided to run for city council is having to run a business after the passing of my father, and seeing the struggles that our family faced as small business people living within this city made me see the importance that we support working people and small business owners, that we've developed those relationships, we reach out to them, and now as a paraeducator and student teacher here in the school district, recognizing how powerful our education system can be as an economic driver of being a bright star for the people of New Britain, and how important it is that we work towards those goals. Every day I see hardworking, dedicated people, students who are hardworking and want the education, and we have to do our best to accommodate and give them what they deserve. So that's what I believe should be our focus when it comes to economic development towards the city.
Thank you. Anyone else? All the way at the end first?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly chime in. One of the things that's going down on the east side is we have an Aetna advisory board that's in connection with the YWCA, which Jarrell Hargraves and myself both serve on that board. And due to the time that we've been on that board, we've been able to do neighborhood cleanups. And one of the things, crowning achievements of that, is that we had a neighborhood barbecue, which was free to the residents. The police department came out and cooked. And we also had city officials that were there answering all of the questions that the residents may have. We also had a board in which we asked the residents, what would you like to see change within your area? We got so much feedback. And again, I agree with that sentiment. It's not about the residents engaging us, it's about us engaging the residents.
Anyone else?
I'd like to...
Hold on, just one at the very end.
Yeah, if I can just add, it's important that we invest in our cities because investors like towns that invest in themselves. So if we want to have economic development in a town, we have to make sure that our roads are nice, that we're developing our sidewalks like we're doing right now on Jubilee Street, replacing the entire sidewalk program, and working with the business owners, making sure that our zoning laws are in favor for the economic development within the city.
I'm not sure the mic is working, but in Ward 1, there's not a lot of places for business, but as a proud business owner that it's been business for over 20 years, those business owners that I associate with like to see cities that reinvest in themselves. They will go to areas that are being invested, that look good, and are being improved on. And I think the mayor has done a terrific job for the past 6 years of actually getting the city so that it looks welcoming for a lot of business owners, whether or not small, medium, or big, and a lot of the bigger businesses want to stay here too, and I think that's all very encouraging.
All right. We're going to move on to the next question, and this one comes from the audience, and we'll go to the Democrats first. It has been put forth that taxes should be cut. Is this feasible, and how will it be accomplished?
Can you repeat the question?
It has been put forth that taxes should be cut. Is it feasible to cut taxes, and if so, how will that be accomplished?
Well, I don't believe that it is feasible to cut taxes per se. Taxes, I know that from what I'm aware of, the tax level is pretty much what it is at this moment. I do believe, though, that what we can do is we can do some assessments and do some inquiries to really check that, to make a decision on that.
90 seconds to the Republicans.
I could chime in on that one. I think, yes, taxes can be cut. We have to grow our grand list. And as long as we keep spending, we don't increase our spending and we grow our grand list, taxes can go down. We have the Energy and Innovation Project that's coming into town. That's going to be the largest taxpayer in town. As long as we don't increase spending, taxes can go down, absolutely.
Anyone else?
Can I chime in?
60
May I chime in?
seconds.
Is it possible to chime in?
You may. 60 seconds, sir.
Okay. As being on the council, one thing I'm concerned about is, of course, taxes. But one thing we've been, on both sides, we've been discussing, like, can we possibly cut taxes by combining services? In particular, or specifically, combining the Board of Educational District with City Hall. We have, and maybe that's not feasible, but we need to look at, like, we have a finance director for the Board of Education, a finance director for the City of New Britain. Isn't it possible, and wasn't it at some time that they were combined? And if not, how about this other thing? I was advised that there was this Blue Ribbon Committee, and the purpose of the Blue Ribbon Committee was basically how to find out or figure out how to cut costs for the City of New Britain. I'm just wondering, is that still feasible? And maybe we should take a look at that in order to cut taxes.
Anyone else want to chime in? First, we're going to come on this side of the table, and then we'll go back down the other. Yep.
Okay. Just as the police chair of the commission for the past 6 years, I've been heavily involved with the budget, and that would be the second largest budget, $18 million for the city. And when Mayor Stewart first got in, she said, you need to cut. And be honest, we've cut every year. We're extremely bare bones. So I think you have to be careful about if you start cutting more, we're cutting officers or cutting services, and I don't think that's the way we want to go. But I do agree that data center For all those that don't know, according to those in the know, like Mike Casella involved in it, that's going to be a huge help for the city. It just needs to take time, but the more growth we have, the more businesses that come into the city, the better it is for the tax structure. We can't rely on the city residents to keep increasing the tax base.
I think it's a delicate balance. When you're dealing with managing a city, you have to deal with union contracts. You have to deal with services that cost more. And so it is important, as my good colleague Jarrell Hargrave said, about increasing the grand list, making sure that we make it easier for businesses to want to invest in the city of New Britain. One of the things that we don't want to do, however, in order to try to save money, is cut departments or cut services that are needed. I know that in our last budget season, it was a contentious budget season, but I'm grateful that the mayor vetoed the budget that was offered by the other side that would have cut even Jarrell Hargrave's job, in which he is the community, it would have cut the community services, and then it would cut him, which is the human rights officer. And so what we need to do is to make sure that we incentivize business, increase our grand list, and I'm happy about the innovation park, which is going to bring about over $45 million over 20 years. So it's things like that that if we bring to the city, one day we'll be able to lower the taxes.
Anyone else want to chime in?
How can we lower taxes when we got people here talking they want to give the Board of Education $30 million more? Where are we going to get it? Are we going to have to cut the senior center, the snow removal, garbage pickup? And everything keeps going up, and people don't understand that, so I don't know how we can do it unless we bring in more economic development, which we're doing. Thank you.
All right. We're going to go to another question from the audience, and this sort of comes from the other side. It is, what should we do to increase access to services in New Britain? And we'll start with the Republicans for this one.
Well, I think that the city of New Britain has a lot of services. I think that the key point is making sure that the residents are informed about those services. There's a lot of people that I'm able to run into, whether knocking on doors or within the community, that don't realize that there are services provided in the city through many nonprofit organizations, through our churches, and even within the city aspect. And I think that with the new technology, being social media, and even with the City Hall website and how we're improving that those are ways in which we can engage the residents and to let them know that the city of New Britain has so many things to offer them. One of the things that also with the city of New Britain is that we're also providing services to those that don't even reside here. When it comes to our homeless program, we're taking in people from all these areas around the city of New Britain. And so I think that we have a lot of services that are here, and I'm thankful that we're all working collaboratively in order to provide those to the residents. But I think greater information so that the people in need that need those services know that they're in place.
90 seconds. Anyone on the Democratic ticket?
Yes. I agree 100 or 1,000% of what Alderman Rosado just said. And we do have a lot of services, but the punchline is, as he said, a lot of people are not aware of the services. In a past job that I had with the state for 23 years, it's now known as PURA, but it was the Department of Public Utility Control. And in that department alone, they have regulations that protect people all year round. And my point is this: a lot of seniors, a lot of people who are economically challenged give up paying for their medical needs to pay their utility bills. And people, if they were aware of the fact that all they need to do is to call the utility company, whether it's electricity or natural gas, call them and verify and state your financial status, verify and state your medical conditions, you will be protected. You will be protected all year round if it's considered to be a life-threatening illness, but in most cases where it's a severe illness, you will at least be protected from November 1st through May 1st. And during that time, it gives you the opportunity to make arrangements where you do not have to lose your services. But that information is not made known by the state. They went out of their way. I worked there to make sure people don't know it.
Anyone else for 60 seconds? How would you increase access to services?
In addition, I think that we as a community need to try to remove the stigma around the mental health issues. And I think that sometimes people don't want the services because they don't want to be frowned upon amongst others. So we as a community, if we come together and remove that stigma and have people, encourage people to get the services that they need as a community, that can help improve access to the services as well.
Now, just real quickly, but Officer Scorpo had spoken about the opioid and heroin addiction. We do have a program within the PD that's called HOPE, and it's, as he spoke before, that anybody that has an addiction can go to the police department, they can go to their homes, et cetera, and they will bring them up to the hospital, will actually sign off, no arrest unless there's a warrant, et cetera. But then they're immediately brought to services, city services, that will take them to the next level. So there is a program in place. It is early on. It's only a year old. That is actually helping those so they understand that there are people out there that are willing and services that will help them.
Okay. Sure. 60 seconds.
Certainly, the lack of access to services is also a function of the flat funding of our education system. Fact of the matter is, as public education is so much more than just educational and instructional. It's also social and emotional well-being of the students and also their families. And when we've made a decision to stop putting money or stop to flat fund that education system, that means we're making a decision to cut access to the most vulnerable people in our city, and that is the most direct access we have is with the students and those families of saying, you know, the social worker at my school, Mr. Tykotski, helps students, gives them access to resources and their families access to resources they wouldn't know normally. And that's why we need to make sure that we have to prioritize and reprioritize education within the city again.
Anyone else? All right, that is our last question for this group of candidates. We can all give a nice round of applause to the wards 1 and 2 candidates. Thank you very much for participating. And I'm going to ask the candidates for wards 3, 4, and 5 to come to the table. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started now. And the Republicans will have the first question in this debate. Again, each side will have 90 seconds to answer the question, and then if others wish to chime in after the first 2 answers, those will be 60 seconds apiece. Everybody on board? All right, let's get going. For our first question, what would you do to enhance civic engagement and voter turnout in the city of New Britain if elected?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. What would we do to enhance civic engagement, to increase voter turnout? It's very simple. It was talked about in the last few debates, door to door, out in the community, talk with our residents, talk with our constituents. The city of New Britain is a great place full of great people who need to be educated that it's okay to register to vote and that they have the ability to be part of change in our city. And I think that door-to-door, face-to-face contact, community events that we currently hold in our city, such as Main Street USA or any of our downtown festivals in Central Park, anything we can do through the school district to engage the parents even more so. As a full-time employee of the school district, I have contact with parents every day, and the ability to speak face-to-face with them makes the biggest difference. So my direct answer is face-to-face contact, door-to-door contact.
All right.
May I?
Democratic side?
May I?
90 seconds.
I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters on behalf of all of my Republican colleagues. I think another way to reach out and increase the voter base and participation in government in general is to provide written print information at all conveniently located locations in our city, such as our public library, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, our local churches. I know that over the past couple of weeks, just doing door knocking, people at times were saying, we didn't even know there was an election. So I agree with Alderman Smedley. his comments about, obviously, the reach out door to door, but I think we should do a little bit more with print material where we know that people frequent. And if that's the Dunkin' Donuts on the corner, then it's Dunkin' Donuts on the corner.
Anyone else want to chime in for 60 seconds on this question? Go ahead.
Okay, so civic engagement, one important entity we have here is the NRZs. And especially in my ward, the North Oak NRZ. And what I would hope is that the city would promote actually the NRZ but actually what happened recently is the opposite, is that the NRZ is shut down, they're not allowed to meet, they're not provided space to meet, so that doesn't help with civic engagement. And voter turnout. In addition, of course, we have to look at the larger picture. The Trump administration threatened to put a citizenship requirement question on the census. And even though it found a roadblock to that, but that reduces civic engagement in the city of New Britain that has a lot of diverse, a lot of immigrant communities. Finally, what I would like to see in the city of New Britain is much more engagement with our Arab, which are Sudanese, with our other communities that are a significant number of our students. And I don't see this city providing voices for those groups. Thank you.
Another one, 60 seconds.
First of all, thanks to the League of Women Voters for the voter registration efforts that we do all throughout the year. I've been a League member since the 80s, and I've done a great deal of registration with the League. That said, we need to encourage voters to come out. Voter turnout is the bigger problem, not even voter registration being such a problem in Connecticut. But we need to help people understand that it's the local issues, the state issues, which really affect our day-to-day lives. And usually when people hear that and they begin to understand it, then they're far more interested in voting. That's part of the answer to what we do to increase voter education. We need to do it across the media, we need to do it on social media, print media, and door-to-door talking to people. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'd like to just answer one question, or actually touch base on the alderman's last response. I'm a business owner in town, a resident, obviously because I'm running for alderman, but also I own property in the North Oak NRZ. I have tried going to several of those meetings, and what I noticed in those meetings was city officials being attacked verbally for their job performance or basic their responsibilities. I was myself ridiculed, and I was the only landlord there. I stopped going to those because of certain individuals. They didn't welcome individuals like myself who have tenants there, who are voters, and it wasn't a great atmosphere altogether. I've seen police officers being yelled at those events.
All right. We're going to move on to the next question. This one we'll start with someone from the Democratic ticket. What is your opinion about the best balance of taxes versus services in your budget?
Thank you, and I want to thank the League for hosting this event. It's a wonderful event. It's unfortunate that not all the candidates for office this year were able to be here. You know, there's a misconception about taxes and services. If you cut taxes, you're going to cut services, and that's not necessarily true. We have a question earlier today was about regionalism, and what do you think about regionalism? And my response to that is regionalism is a great idea, but we have a problem. Let's not even talk about regionalism. Let's talk about the fact that we cannot get the Board of Education and the City of New Britain to combine services to eliminate inefficiencies in government. The repeating of expenses that we do, I think it was mentioned earlier, they have a finance director, the city has a finance director, the Board of Education has human resources, the city has human resources. So yes, you can lower taxes. The Democrats proposed last year an amendment to the budget to reduce the mill rate by half a mil and to reduce the budget by 1.5 million. It was said that it was unworkable and it couldn't be done, and I find that to be absolutely not true. The reality is we can lower taxes. We need to start doing things differently in this town. We cannot repeat the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. We are on an unsustainable path. Our budgets continue to increase from $214 million to $242 million in 6 years. Our bonding has gone from $239 million to $458 million as of October of last year. That has to stop, and it has to stop, and we need aldermen who are willing to stop it.
Next, 90 seconds. Okay, let's let the candidates respond.
So the question asked about balance of services, and my answer would be is, first of all, is to improve services. And to improve services, you need competent people in the services. And I think what I've seen is, actually, you probably go back to both Mayor Stewart, the father, and then Stewart, the daughter. Between them, they have about 14 years of, I would call it nepotism. I would call it when they hire people who are not necessarily qualified for their services. So if we want quality services, we need to hire the best people to serve us. If we, the Democrats, for example, offered to require heads of department to live in New Britain. Makes sense. Makes sense that they need to live here because they see what happens and provide the best services, and yet it was vetoed.
All right, anyone else? 60 seconds. Before we move on, I'm going to have to ask the audience at this point to refrain from calling out, and also I'm going to ask at this point to refrain from applause because it is cutting into the candidates' time for responses, and I know you all want to be able to have as many candidates respond to as many questions as possible. So I thank you for that in advance. 60 seconds. Yes.
Point of order, Madam Moderator. That was a continued response from the Democratic side. The Republicans still need the 90-second response.
Thank you. 90 seconds.
Good afternoon. I'm Jason Gibson, running Ward 3. And I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for having us. I just want to piggyback on going back to the voter engagement and civic unity here. I am on Team Stewart, and to those in my community may have not felt that it was popular. But as you can see, what we need to bring back is the true diversity. If we're going to have true diversity, I'm on a bipartisan slate that where we can have communications and continue to get things done. Slinging insults and putting people down is not going to get people engaged in coming out for voter registration. It's not going to give us civic unity. What good does it do if we don't come together and able to sit down and stop pointing the fingers and really get to the heart of the issues and the resources that we need? We need people who's going to believe in us and believe that we have a voice, regardless what it is. I can't sit on here and say that we are bipartisan when it get chastised for not being on a slate that you're supposed to be representing because of the color of your skin or by how you are. That is the judgment of that.
Again, I'm going to ask the members of the audience to refrain.
It's not by the judgment of my skin, but by the content of my character. So I got on this team because, yes, Ward 3 needs a lot of help. But they also, it's not just people working here, but people who are representing them need to be in that ward constantly and coming up with solutions instead of always pointing out the problems. Thank you.
Again, I'm just going to ask one more time, if you can't remain quiet, to please just go outside. We need to have everybody to be able to hear all of the candidates' responses. Is there anyone else who wants to jump in for 60 seconds? Yes.
Thank you. I'd like to refer back to the question, which was, what is the best balance of services and taxes? And it's important to remember that 48% of the property in our city is non-taxable, and that it's difficult to work within those pillars. Now, we have to remain competitive to our neighboring cities and towns. And what do I mean by that? The Berlin Turnpike is very close by and has plenty of land space for development. We have to remain competitive by offering tax breaks to businesses that would like to come into our city to open up, to continue to grow our grand list so that we can find the happy balance of taxes versus the services that we offer. We all in this room, no matter what label we have or what we wear on our shirt, do not want to lose any of the services we provide: education, fire, EMS, and our police department. Our trash pickup, we don't want to, our parks, nobody wants to lose any of that. That is very clear. I just need to refer back to another comment that was made earlier about the attempted tax reduction by the Democratic ticket. And I want to quote a memo from the mayor dated June 18, 2018. The budget passed by the Common Council on June 9, 2018 calls for the elimination of a number of critical function
Please wrap up, sir.
city jobs, including the Deputy Finance Director, Manager of Facilities and Energy, Director of Elderly Services, Community Service, and
Your
others.
time is up, sir.
Those are 818 bargaining positions that could not have
Anyone
been
else for
eliminated with
60
a tax cut.
seconds? Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to say that first, I worked for the city for 31 years now. I'm a high-ranking official. I live in this town. I moved back a couple years ago because I like the things that are happening here. To go back to what the alderman said before about the budget being cut and lowering the mill rate by 0.5%, it was undoable. It was in violation of all union contracts. They would have paid back the money. It would have cost more money. Your mill rate would have went up. To be an alderman, you have to understand not just what you're representing the people, but the contracts that are in place, services that must be provided. You have to look at all of it. During that budget, there were personal attacks that were done. They were slicing people out of the budget that they didn't like. I've been with the city for 31 years. I have never worked with a better group of people. City Hall right now has some of the best people in positions I've seen in 31 years.
We'll take one more response on this question before we move to the next question. Sure.
Thank you. So, you know, Mr. Thompson is a member of 818, and yes, in our budget, there were a number of 818 positions that we wanted to remove. Let me go back a little bit. There was a restructuring of City Hall. There were about 22 department heads. Today, there are 6 super department heads, but those other individuals are all now directors. So the city maintained all these 6-figure salary people on the budget. They're still in the budget. So when you eliminate, you know, when you restructure in corporate America, people go bye-bye. People are laid off. That doesn't seem to work in City Hall. People who are hired under grants somehow end up in the budget afterwards, as opposed to in the grant positions, when the grant's over, you leave. So the city, from 2013 to today, we went from about 500 employees to 558 employees, and total, including the Board of Education, not counting some of the part-time people, there's almost 1,900 employees that work for the city of New Britain. 250 of them, as of 2016, made over $100,000.
All right, we're going to move on to the next question. This is a question that comes in from the audience, and we will have someone from the Republican ticket answer first. What is your stance on parking in New Britain? Do we have the appropriate amount in the appropriate places? And is it appropriate that certain storefronts have parking meters and others do not?
I'm sorry, who has that first?
The Republicans.
I'll begin the answer, and I'll share the time with some of my colleagues. I live in Ward 4, where parking is a commodity. We have CCSU in our neighborhood, and we have to have tight restrictions. We are still working on, and hopefully we'll have ready, a parking permit system for the residents of Ward 4, where a registered vehicle to the homeowner can be parked in the no parking 8-to-8 zone in our neighborhoods. Regarding the storefronts in our downtown district, we have made multiple attempts with this administration to streamline the parking or pay for parking services that we have in the city. Unfortunately, to no avail, because our colleagues on the council had whatever questions they had regarding that. But I do believe that metered parking is an easy solution for our city. It's a revenue generator that will help other parts that we've talked about already. I want to point out that we are currently building a metered parking lot on Broad Street at this point to increase the parking in that area that will bridge the plaza area with Broad Street. So if any of my other colleagues would like to jump in there.
There's about 20 seconds left for a Republican. All right, let's move to the Democratic response, 90 seconds.
Hello?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. On parking, I believe that this question was primarily asked about the Broad Street parking, which doesn't get metered, versus the downtown parking, which does get metered. At this point, we have seen that Broad Street has thrived well under the situation that they're in, and I don't think that that should be changed. There is also been a proposal floating around to privatize New Britain's parking revenue, to bring in a private company to administer it. I oppose it. Anytime you have to bring in a private company to administer it, they're not doing it for love, they're doing it to make a profit. And part of whatever revenue we might have gotten out of parking will then be disappearing off to a private company. So that issue disturbs me, and I would like to make that very clear. We do need to get our parking garages, which are downtown, to feel user-friendly. It's going to take lighting, it's going to take publicity, perhaps some free time, first half hour free, so you can go into a store, see if maybe you want to buy something. If you don't, you can go home again. If you do want to shop and you found your item there, then you're willing to pay the extra $1 or so to park cars. It's done all the time in West Hartford Center. People park and they pay. But we may need a little incentive, and that incentive might be a first half hour free. Let's take a look at this and not kill off something which is good, which is Broad Street, but grow something else which could happen, which is the rest of our neighborhoods.
All right, anyone else for 60 seconds want to get in on this question? Let's go further down the table first.
Right here?
Yep, yes.
Thank you. My good friend Alderman Smedley made a comment about there was a delay on an effort to do something with parking. Let me go back to that October matter. There was a proposal before the council at the last meeting in September of 2018 to go ahead and approve this privatization of our parking meters to a company that had 5 contracts in the entire United States. 5 contracts. They were out of Minnesota. Don't know how they came to New Britain. That was delayed to go to a committee meeting. In the middle of October, there was a committee meeting and there was a discussion. There was a presentation made. Our facilities director was there, as well as one of the gentlemen from the company. It was amazing the amount of differences between the two of them as they answered questions. But what was very clear is that we would lose control over our parking meters. We would now be in a partnership with this private company who, by the way, had a contract in the city of Bridgeport and lost that contract after about 2 years, not even 2 years. So yes, the Democrats pushed back. Absolutely, we pushed back, because if we're going to do anything, we want to make sure that it's done right and not to a company that has no experience.
Okay. Anyone else for 60 seconds on this?
Thank you. The city currently has a compliance payment rate for parking tickets of 45%. If the company that was selected, as my good colleague Alderman Carlozzi noted, from Minnesota, or I don't even know where they were from, to be honest with you, but it was a public bid for parking services, so that's where they came from. 45% current compliance rate with parking permits. It was projected to reach 90%. The difference is astounding if we had privatized our parking. Thank you.
Yes, one more.
I just want to speak a specific aspect of parking. In Ward 3, we have certain areas where there are businesses or car dealership that are in the same location as homeowners. And so that creates, we have here actually in the residence here somebody that has experienced that ongoing, that they can't find parking because they use it for dealerships and stuff. So I think it's time that we move some businesses that were grandfathered before in residential, to move them to a more area where you have businesses, so you have more parking and more feeling of a community, rather than a place where they fix cars at the same time as kids are running around. Thank you.
All right, we're going to go to one more question, one final question for this group, and this is a question from the audience. What would you do to improve our neighborhoods, and I guess specifically for the wards that you're trying to represent? And we are going to start with someone from the Democratic ticket for this one.
Alderman Francisco Santiago from Ward 5. As people may know, I'm heavily in the community. I've been in the community for the past 20 years that I lived here, but the most now. As alderman, I still continue to be in the community. That's the most important part of why I ran for city council, was because there wasn't that connection between the community and the council and city hall as we were. That's why the engagement of the residents is not there. It's because they're looking for people to actually represent their concerns, their needs in the council. Not personal, all this party stuff is not about that once you're in council. It's about the people. That's the reason why you see the petitions I put in. I put probably the most petitions out between me and Alderman Aram, because these are concerns. And you know what? They're not being met, a lot of them. Most of them are being met, but a majority of them aren't. A lot of times you look at, there was a concern about, I'm sorry right now, I'm just still a little emotional from certain things, but there was a time where a resident asked for, there were concerns with speeding. We had 20 people there. They finally got approved. Other some twist or whatever, it got denied, taken away. It was speed humps. Yes, it was about speed humps. Guess what? That was a concern. But this administration considered the dollar over the people's concerns. I'm sorry to tell you this, but it's the truth, and that's what I'm going to tell you. The problem is we're not engaging with the community because the community is not trusting us, and we have to have them trust us. That's the problem.
All right, a response from the Republican side, 90 seconds.
I'd like to answer that question because I've seen the posts on Facebook and social media, and I kind of know where the gentleman lives. I've been down that street. I live right off of Slater Road myself, and speeding is a problem in the city. I don't believe that speed bumps are the answer. I do know for a fact that the traffic department, the New Britain Police Department, put in a speed sign that tells you how fast you're going. Afterwards, the gentleman complained on social media, why did they put it in front of his house? Just saying.
All right, we have time for a few more responses, 60 seconds apiece. And we'll start with the second person, yes.
I'm representing Ward 4. CCSU, of course, impacts our ward greatly. They can be a positive impact. They can be a negative impact. I've been on the Town and Gown Committee for many years where we get together, we talk about issues as to what is going on, deal with party noise, deal with littering. Not all littering is by students by any means, but it is an issue. We work on it together. I know the members of the SGA, the Student Government Association at CCSU, and talk to them. Other things for Ward 4, Stanley Street, the Stanley Quarter Park pond used to be beautiful, complete with its little paddle boats where I used to take my kids. It's a slimy mess. I know the geese caused it, not the Democrats, not the Republicans. It was the geese. But it needs to be dredged. So let's get that cleaned up. Last of all, as I've walked around, sidewalks, paving, those are things, especially the area of Ward 4 north of Broad Street. People have told me they need their sidewalks paved. And yes, we are now in a society where we encourage walking to public transit. We need to provide money for our sidewalks. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take one more response.
Yeah, I'll take that one. I'm actually running in Ward 4. I'm running with Mayor Stewart, and what she's done so far for our community has been a great improvement in the parks. If you haven't been by A.W. Stanley Park, take a ride by and see it. That was done under her administration. The pond will be dredged under her administration. The money's already there. We're already started that project. We already started Stanley Quarter renovation. Take a ride by. Chesley Park, take a ride by. The parks are becoming improved. That's one of our greatest assets in the city for the kids to use. Mayor Stewart has done that. In my 30 years, I haven't seen as much money being spent on parks as it is right now. So the complaints that are coming in, it's being done right now, and that's why I want to run to keep this thing going, to help her keep everything on track the way it's going.
All right, thank you. And now a nice round of applause for all of these candidates. Thank you very much. Again, there's still time to turn questions in. So if you have questions, raise your hand to turn those in. And again, I'm going to ask audience members to not respond to any of the candidate responses. No applause, no boos, no jeers, and no cheers. And that is strictly to allow the candidates a maximum amount of time to respond to questions that are being posed to educate the people of New Britain. Great, we're going to get started. And for this debate, we have 3 candidates running for mayor of the city of New Britain, and each of them will have a 30-second opening statement. The order of opening statement was chosen by draw, and it will be actually the order that we have the candidates sitting in now. Can everyone see the timekeeper down in front? Or just raise your hand there. That's your timekeeper there. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with opening statements. And Chris, you're up.
I'll start with saying I'll start with saying thank you for everyone coming here today. I'm Chris Portrait, and I'm the Democratic endorsed candidate in the city of New Britain. I'm born and raised and a lifelong resident here in the great city of New Britain. I'm a graduate of New Britain High School as I went through the entire public school system here. I'm a graduate from Central Connecticut State University, and I've also obtained my master's in business management from the University of St. Joe's. I'm currently a program director at one of our local nonprofits where I've been able to gain experience managing people, making tough decisions, and also managing 5 different budgets for 5 different departments that I oversee. I'm looking forward to bringing my experience with working in nonprofits here in the city of New Britain and my community organizing and my community activism to the city of New Britain to ensure that we have the leadership that we need, the transparency that we need, and ethical budgeting that we need here in the city of New Britain. Thank you.
All right, Erin.
Good afternoon, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. As always, my name is Erin Stewart. I am running for a 4th term as mayor of the great city of New Britain. It has been a true honor and a privilege to serve this city for the last 4 terms. We have done some incredible things in this community over the last 6 years, transformed the city of New Britain into new heights in ways that we have never seen before. That comes with good management, good leadership, and a great team that's behind me in order to get that done. The city of New Britain is seeing businesses that are coming in like never before, decades. We have not seen this growth in decades. This is the policies that I have put in place that have allowed that to happen. It is an honor to be here. I look forward to talking a lot more about the issues in depth over the next 24 minutes, and I look forward to earning all of your support.
Thank you. And Devon?
How's everybody doing? My name is Devon Tanksley. I want to say thank you to the League of Women Voters as well for hosting this event. I'm a community activist. I've been in the community all my life, 33 years. I run my own youth development basketball program. I started about 3 years ago. I own 2 businesses in the city of New Britain. And I'm a 2-time author, wrote 2 books. And my whole goal for the city of New Britain is just to bring unity and unite people together. I have a unique leadership skills when it comes to developing kids. We now work in the prison systems for reform and to help our kids and youth to stop losing them from the streets. And my whole goal is to bring unity to the community and leadership as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we're going to move on to the question portion of the debate. These will be a combination of questions from you in the audience and as well as League of Women Voters developed questions. For each question, we will rotate the order of response, and the first question order was determined by lot. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer each question, followed by potential for 1-minute rebuttals from other candidates on the stage. So for the first question, we're going to start with Erin, and this is an audience question. What steps would you take to expand on transit-oriented development centered around the busway?
Wheelhouse question for me. Transit-oriented development has been a cornerstone of my administration. We have seen tens of millions of dollars come in specific to transit-oriented development funds in this city since the day that I took office and since the day the Fast Track opened in 2015. Public transit is extremely important to our community, and the use of CT Fast Track has grown exponentially since its opening. We've seen tons of development that have happened around that transportation hub, and we needed a plan to put in place in order to grow even more. We didn't have a plan in place when I first took office. We created that transit-oriented development master plan called Creating Hives of Activity, get it? But that was all aimed at increasing economic development, working on our Complete Streets master plan all around that transit-oriented development focus. There's 3 areas of town that impacts. It's not just downtown, it's the east side of town as well, around CCSU and over on East Street. And those development areas we are seeing an increased amount of activity and interest from developers in neighborhoods that we have never seen before simply because of the plan that we have put forward. I'm extremely proud of that. I want to continue the work on that. I mean, we're in phase 6 of our Complete Streets master plan. That will continue. We have 9 phases of that now. We're talking about development on Dwight Court over on the east side of town. We're talking about Columbus Commons that's going up by the old police station. That's just phase 1. Phase 2 of that is what's coming next, and I want to be there to negotiate that deal that's bringing workforce and affordable housing to downtown with access to CT Fast Track and access to mass transit that we know our residents need, we know many of our residents depend on. I'm very proud of the plan. I look forward to continuing to implement it, and I certainly hope that my colleagues here would look if they were to be successful, would implement that plan and take that plan and continue using it because it is good and it is successful for this city.
Thank you. Devon? Devon, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, yes. So I lived in New Britain all my life. Both of my businesses, no, all 3 of my businesses, including my nonprofit, is around the CT Fast Track. One thing that I would like to see is that if a lot of people notice that New Britain is a diverse city, but a lot of the shopping areas in our stores, they're not, we're surrounded by areas like the Berlin Turnpike and the West Farms Mall and the Plainville Plaza. But what we need to bring into the city is we need to cover our niche. And our niche is sports, entertainment, technology, something that we're gonna drive the community and drive people to the center of New Britain. And I understand that development of bringing people in as far as apartments and buildings is good, but if you notice, there's a lot of businesses that opened up in the downtown area, and there's a lot of businesses that closed in the downtown area. So we have to be creative when building that downtown area to bring traffic. It's been there, but CCSU still haven't really been, the students still haven't really been coming to the downtown area because of the fast track. So my goal is to see how we can be creative to not only build apartments and bring people to the community, but bring different businesses and different entertainment, things like movie theaters, things like sports activity that's gonna drive traffic downtown New Britain.
Thank you. And Chris?
So the fast track has been an amazing asset for the city of New Britain, as we have individuals that are leaving our town and going to work in other cities like Hartford. I think our next step within the fast track and our public transportation is ensuring that it is accessible for all people. There are improvements that we have to make to our fast track locations, and looking at our downtown location, making it easier for individuals to park. I think that is extremely important. We also want to be able to use the fast track to attract individuals coming into New Britain. And what that takes is economic growth and support of our economics in our downtown area and across New Britain. Right now, it is people are leaving New Britain. I was a Central Connecticut State University grad, and when I went to Central, we left New Britain and we went to Hartford, we went to West Hartford. People are not coming in to the city of New Britain, and we need to find ways, and we have to have bipartisanship partnerships across the council and within the mayor's office to ensure that we are making the city an attractable place for people to use the fast track and ensure that there's safety also around our public transportation. I've ridden the fast track multiple times going in and out of Hartford for meetings with my company that I work for in New Britain. And often we see individuals within the fast track and individuals not feeling safe. And we need to ensure that we work with our state delegation and our state partners so we can enhance our public transportation.
Thank you. Let's move on to another question, and this is another audience question. How could you continue to support the LGBTQ plus community and other communities to promote diversity and inclusion? And the order will be Devon, Chris, and then Aaron.
So when it comes to supporting the LGBT community and the community at large, we got to understand something, right? So New Britain is a very, very diverse city. And being here, all my life, I done seen New Britain go from up to down. Now, a lot of people will say that New Britain has been rising in a whole another direction, but in order to really get everyone on the same page, we need to make sure that we're connecting directly with the heart of the people. It doesn't matter what gender you is, it doesn't matter what's your race, it doesn't matter what sex. At the end of the day, we are all people. So we need to make sure that we bring in people together and connecting with the heart of people. One thing that I've noticed is that growing up in New Britain, I've walked these streets, the city of New Britain, day in and day out. Not only when it's time for election, not only when it's time to get votes. I've spoke with people, I've seen people. I have a family and a friendship and a community race of all different sorts of people. And one thing I notice is that when you can really relate with the people that you're serving, that's when we can connect and really start to move the whole community forward as a unit. Just for example, earlier today, you got one side clapping for one person, one side clapping for the other person. Where's the unity? Where's the togetherness? Making people feel like they're a part of your community, and that's what I bring as a leader.
All right, thank you. Chris?
Yeah. So to answer the question about our LGBTQ community and how do we make this more inclusive in the city of New Britain, I will absolutely be transparent and give credit where credit is due. I do think the city has definitely taken steps to move forward with supporting our diverse communities, right? So one of my biggest goals is how do we remove the terms, right? LGBTQ. How do we just start calling ourselves people and ensuring that we are just one group and we are united in the city of New Britain. And this is the experience that I bring to the table. I work in mental health and addiction services where these people are often marginalized and oppressed, right? And at the national level, we still face oppression towards our LGBTQ community. So we need to join forces, join efforts to ensure that we are supporting all people. There is a pride group in New Britain, and I believe the leader of that is here tonight. And I will ensure as a mayor that I align myself and I sit on that committee to be educated and to ensure that we bring education into our communities, into our school systems, and to people that are coming into New Britain so that we are understanding our communities as a whole. One of the biggest pieces that we often miss is looking at LGBTQ, the population, as an inclusive group and how that affects jobs, how that affects our school system, how that affects our city employees, how it affects our school administrators and administration. There's equal representation within New Britain amongst these communities, and we need to figure out ways on how to elevate that. How do we elevate that? How do we be prideful? And how do we bring a pride parade to the city of New Britain? Because we need that here. And that is one of my goals as the mayor of New Britain.
Let's try to keep the audience responses to a minimum. Thank you. And Erin.
So I'm very glad that the City of New Britain has a Pride Committee, and it wouldn't if it weren't for my leadership. And I'd like to thank John Board, the chairman of the Pride Committee, for being here today and for all his work in moving the agenda forward. John's been a leader, and he's been in my office, I can't tell you countless times, many times, to talk about the issues in the community with the LGBTQ community that we need to push forward on. And it's been a pleasure and an honor to work with you very closely on that. He's been hosting events. The city has been so supportive of all of those events. You know, we had the flag raising for the first time this past year, and when we raised that pride flag in Central Park, it didn't come, unfortunately, without a lot of animosity and with a lot of nasty comments that came along with it. And I told the story of that morning at the pride flag raising about the phone calls that I received, encouraging me to not go forward with it. I think one of the most important things as a leader is to not stand for ignorance, and that's exactly what's coming from the people that are opposed to our Pride Committee and the work that it does. Diversity and inclusion is so important in every facet of our government, and making sure that everyone feels equal. You're absolutely right. And that everyone feels that they have a voice and are being heard, and I've been extremely proud to support every effort in that.
Thank you. All right, the next question, we're going to start with Chris. And this is also an audience question. What plans are in place, or what plans would you propose to ensure that current New Britain residents aren't priced out, particularly due to rising property taxes?
I think that's an extremely important question. As we know, as mentioned before, New Britain is in a unique situation. We have the 4th highest mill rate in the state. 48% of our land is not taxable, as we have many nonprofits on our roll and big organizations like the Central Connecticut State University and the Hospital of Central Connecticut. That puts us in a unique situation. So what we need to pay attention to is how we budget our city budget. We've made unethical budgeting decisions over the past 6 years. Our taxes have raised 14% over the past 6 years. And we cannot continue to put that tax burden on our homeowners, on our car owners, on individuals that are trying to purchase homes in the city of New Britain. We can no longer make the same decisions and continue to do the same thing that we've been doing for the past 6 years. What we've done, we've refinanced and restructured our budget 4 times within the past 5 years. Our original debt profile was $309 million. The budget has been restructured. It is now $458 million that we will have to pay in 2045. And the evidence is here. And this is a city document from the Mazzaro Financial Group. And it shows the evidence. So if anyone wants to see this, it shows that we have a debt profile to pay of $458 million. The city budget has been restructured and financed on the backs of our future, of our children, and individuals that are going to be paying taxes down the line. And that's something that we need to pay attention to. We can no longer continue to put the tax burden on our city residents. We have to make better decisions. When we say we don't raise taxes, but we go out and reassess our homes and the taxes still go up, we need to adjust the mill rate to match that, to ensure that we are protecting our residents.
All right. Again, I'm going to have to ask the audience to keep your responses to a minimum. Erin, you're up next.
Okay, so first off, let's start with that the reevaluation process is a state-mandated program that happens every 5 years. There's nothing that the city of New Britain or no mayor can do about that. You know, we restructured our debt to avoid bankruptcy. And if anyone remembers, when I first took office and we talked about that $30 million operating deficit that I inherited and it was dropped on my lap to fix, what were people telling me? Hey, Erin, file for bankruptcy. It's the easiest thing to do. No. I'm not going to do that. That would cause our property values to tank. That would cause our increase in mill rate to go even higher than what it did when I was forced to do it. We had to have a combination of it all. We cut spending, we increased taxes, we had to restructure our debt. And I have to say, the document that my friend here is referring to, $320 million is the amount of money that we have to pay in our debt profile. Board of Education money is separate. It's separated out. So we have $320 million. That's still nothing to shake a stick at. I get that that's a lot of money, but that money was already there long before me. It'll be there long after me. These are things that the city has to do in order to provide all these services that we want. You want our roads fixed, you want our streets paved, you want our sidewalks done, we want great parks, we want a great quality of life. That comes at a cost. And we have to have a good balance. Sure, our taxes are high, that's great, but our property values are also nowhere in comparison to our neighboring towns. And when you equal that out and you look at how much money you pay for an average house of the size in the city of New Britain and what you would pay for in Berlin, you're getting a hell of a lot more house in New Britain for the money that you pay than you are in our neighboring towns. And a lot more services too. Garbage pickup, schools, the list goes on. I mean, to talk about how we're gonna make sure, the question was how are we gonna prevent people being priced out due to rising property taxes is simple. Bring in more business and grow the Grands List. The Grand List has grown every year since I've been your mayor, and I continue to keep pushing towards that. But the only way you're going to continue to keep taxes stable, which they have been stable for 4 budgets now, nothing's happened since my first term. In order to do that, you have to keep growing and keep growing that tax base, and that's exactly what I'm committed to doing.
Thank you. Again, I'm going to have to ask the audience to please refrain. Devon?
Yes. So I'm gonna say it like this, right? Because everyone, you know, you always want to stay in your lane. So for me, I'm gonna stay in my lane, and my lane is entrepreneurship. My lane is building connections, building relationships, being creative when building businesses. It's okay to bring businesses to the community, but how can you develop a community with economic development when the relationships and the businesses you're bringing, we have 12 family dollars. We don't need 12 family dollars. We don't need 12 99-cent stores. We don't need 12 liquor stores. We need to be creative when building these relationships. And one thing that I've done in the past 3 years, I'm not even saying 6, in the past 3 years, was built 3 businesses and a nonprofit through my relationships that I have been connecting with. So when I come to New Britain, mayor is just a title. You understand? And I don't want no one to look at us like we're all fighting against each other, because we're fighting for something good, but everyone has a different vision. All I want to do is give to the community a vision of leadership, making those decisions to build connectionships and relationships with real investors that want to come to New Britain. I have investors right now. I wouldn't have this restaurant right now if it wasn't for the relationships and investors I connect with. I wouldn't have DMTS Radio on West Main Street if it wasn't for the relationships I've connected with. The nonprofit organization and bringing in other business like a movie theater that we're trying to bring to the community right now. And this has nothing to do with me running for mayor. This has to do with me building economic development. There's nothing that's going to take us out of this hole that we're in except creating jobs. Not jobs that our kids or parents are not prepared for, like the plant that's coming soon, but jobs that we can really work for. Because if we don't have a program in place that really can train our kids for those 3,000 jobs that's supposedly supposed to be coming, then what is it going to do for the community, the residents, and the kids in this city?
Thank you. We have time if either of the other candidates would like to rebut for 60 seconds.
I would just like to add that the jobs that are supposedly coming with Energy and Innovation Park, which is the most incredible development that this city has seen ever. And the amount of jobs and opportunity and tax dollars and the economic impact that Energy and Innovation Park will have on this community will be felt for decades and years to come. Those 3,000 jobs are over a 20-year period. It's $45 million in tax revenue over 18 years. Those 3,000 jobs run the gamut from all sorts of different specialties, whether they're construction jobs or custodial jobs or call center positions. They're not all high-tech positions that you're maybe assuming that people might not be prepared for, but make no mistake, we have the proper support systems in place in our school district to help train that next generation, that workforce that will work at this plant. CCSU is training to make sure that our students are trained to be able to stay in New Britain, work in New Britain, and be a part of Energy and Innovation Park.
Chris, do you want to rebut also for 60 seconds?
Going back to the original question, absolutely, economic development is extremely important for the city of New Britain, as mentioned by most of our candidates that were up here today. But we also need to look at, as we try to balance the budget and ensure that we are protecting our taxpayers, we have to make tough decisions in City Hall. When you have 250 employees that have six-figure salaries that are locked into unions, we need to start figuring out how we make better decisions to support our residents. So yes, as we grow economic development, we also have to make tough decisions in City Hall. I've come from a company and an organization and working in the private and nonprofit sector where when we restructure to make things work for the people that we serve, we have to ensure that we are protecting our residents. Just like when I restructure my programs, I protect my clients. These are the decisions that we have to make in order to protect the taxpayer dollars. Having 250 people in the city administration that is making over six figures is extremely concerning when the average median income in New Britain is $42,000. This is the discussion that we have to talk about. And we have to talk about how we move people along, how we make the city make sense for New Britain residents.
Thank you. We are going to, believe it or not, we're already going to move to closing statements. I know. It went so fast, didn't it? But each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Yeah, it's a 30-minute debate, and it was 30 minutes.
All right.
Okay. So the order of closing statements was determined prior to the debate, and it will be Devon, and then Chris, and then Aaron. And again, I'd like to ask the audience to just try to sit quietly for another 6 minutes or so. Thank you.
All right. So, one thing I want the community to take with them today, or leave with today, is something very, very important to me, and I have to say this. You know, I've always been a leader within my community, and even when I first developed my program, I've gotten support from the city and the community as well. So at the end of the day, when we're all done, you know, throwing towels back and forth, we all still have to live here. We all still have to work here, and we all still have to work together in order to benefit the future of our kids and our residents. So that's one thing I want to get off the table, because politics have done something to us, and it has turned us against one another. It bothers me every day, and I almost didn't want to come up here and sit on the stage after seeing the first couple debates that happened, because why are we fighting against each other in the office when we got people right now sleeping outside, when we got parents who don't know how to feed their kids, when we have jobs that some people are not even prepared for, when we got students right now who can't even read. They're reading below 50% and testing below 50% in our schools. Our schools is 168 of 169, and we're sitting here for 16 years, 20 years, and we can't figure out how to help our community. Like, I want to bring a leadership to the community that's going to lead us, not only talk about lowering taxes the normal politician way, not only talking about how we're going to do this and do that, but really get out there and do it. And I've always been a person of trying to really do something. And sometimes I let my passion get in the way, and it starts looking like I'm so frustrated, but I'm frustrated because why 3 people can't come together and say, listen, our community needs this, the people need this, these people need this, why we can't do this? But we rather sit back and put on either a blue tie or a red tie and say, I'm against you and I'm against you. That's not going to build our community. So I want to bring unity to this community, bring everybody to the table and figure out how can we create more jobs? How can we bring people together? How can we encourage people and how can we lead them to a success in this city that we're supposed to be the forefathers of?
Thank you. Chris?
So as I seek the mayor's office, I want to ensure individuals that I am a person of all people and a representation of our entire city, the entire city of New Britain. I am here to ensure that we are supporting our educational system, to ensure that we are investing in the future of New Britain. I want to ensure that we have economic growth here in the city of New Britain and that we are aligning ourselves with partnerships that make sense and bipartisan partnerships. And I believe that today I am here at the table because I have a vision that represents New Britain, a vision that represents equal opportunity for all people, that represents an enhanced educational system, that represents economic growth, and not just economic growth for the city, but economic growth for the pockets of our residents that are struggling to feed themselves, to feed their families, to pay their bills, and to stop having people have to question if they can pay their light bill or pay their mortgage, or have to move out of the city of New Britain because they no longer believe in the education system here, or they no longer believe in the administration. And I'm an individual, I've worked in local nonprofits for the past 7 years purposely in New Britain. I've been invested in my community. I've done HIV and drug prevention outreach. I've done integrated healthcare for African American and Latino families. I've partnershiped with 3 hospitals, the Hospital of Central Connecticut, Bristol Hospital in Yukon, to ensure that people in New Britain are getting equal treatment in the healthcare system. And I oversee programs that represent our homeless population. I have 5 programs that I oversee. One is our outreach program that represents our homeless population. I oversee individuals that are struggling with mental health and addiction, and we have to be able to bring a full public health to the city of New Britain, ensuring that we are paying attention to our financial health, our educational health, and our community health. And no matter which way this goes, I am a bipartisanship leader, and I have joined the mayor on the opioid task force, and I will continue to sit on that task force no matter which way this goes, because I believe in bipartisanship and true leadership in the city of New Britain. Thank you.
Thank you. Erin?
So I'm a realist. I know what I can control as mayor and what I can't. My record speaks for itself. Just take a ride around town. It sure looks a lot different than it did 6 years ago. I believe in one motto: it's over progress, not politics. Talk is cheap, and actions speak a lot louder than words. But this job is not just for anyone. It takes a lot of knowledge, skill, and patience. It's not easy. Government's a difficult web to weave, and the job needs someone who knows how to navigate through it all, because the job's not just for everyone. You've got to be an effective communicator. You must always be able to stand your ground and never let people walk all over you. You always have to speak with class and have respect for others when you're being attacked. You must have empathy, but you have to understand that you might not be able to help just everyone. You have to be able to tell someone no, which is a lot harder than what it seems. You have to be a decision maker. There's no maybe button. It's yes or no. And sometimes you have only seconds to make that decision. You have only seconds to outweigh the positive or negative impacts of one word that you might say in this position as mayor. So I leave you with this. You have to do what's right over what is popular. You have to understand the office of mayor and what it can and cannot do. You have to realize that you're only one person and you can't do everything, but you sure can try. So I leave you with this. Just vote wisely November 5th, because this job for mayor, it ain't for everyone.
Thank you. And thank you to all of the candidates. Now is a good time for a round of applause for all of the candidates. Before you leave, just a thank you again to all of the candidates who are running for office. It's not easy to put yourself out there. And everyone, please remember to vote on November 5th and tell your friends. Have a good afternoon.